Good morning, Newpers. I'd like to introduce everybody here to Chris. Chris has helped us out in the past. I think I met you right after a hurricane.
Yes, Ian.
It was after Hurricane Ian.
Yes.
And Chris was doing a lot of work at a couple of different sites. His company does everything to do with building envelopes.
Yes.
And that deal, he's dealt with roofs, and he's kind of had scope creep too, I will say.
Oh, a lot of it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you because you have been fantastic when we bring you in for one thing and then somehow we're dealing with paint. Now we're inside doing drywall and doors and all sorts of stuff, cabinets. You've been fantastic at helping us out with stuff like that. So I'd like to introduce you all to Chris.
Morning.
And this morning we're going to be talking about things that we see in the building envelope and the building structure. This is something that as property managers we're dealing with quite frequently, and sometimes we're never quite sure who to go to with it. It'll be something that might be outside of the scope of what a painter does. We'll deal with little stuff, and we think we need to bring a painter in. It turns into a bigger thing. Do we need to bring in an engineer? Sometimes an engineer has identified the issues. Do we need to get a spec? And I want to walk through a couple of examples of things we've seen here at Newell and talk about what we're seeing. And then I'm going to talk about one that's an active thing we're dealing with here at Newell right now. And I'm going to tell you what we've done so far to get to where we're at. And you can kind of give us some tips.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, Chris, can you tell us first a little bit about this? What are we seeing right here?
Right there, you're looking at obviously blistering from a paint, but it's debonding from the wall, and I don't know if that wall is a masonry wall or what type of wall that is, but the paint's coming off of the sheathing, and you don't know what's behind that. That typically would be saw cut and grind it out, and you'll see what's behind it, and then from there you can evaluate it. But you have to get rid of the blistering. So
usually when I've seen this, I'm not saying I've done this every time, but it always kind of reminds me of a big pimple. And so we just kind of prick it, and water usually comes out. And then usually we try to get the painter to come in and find out what's going on. So for the water to get behind there, how does that even happen? Where's that coming from? It's coming from the cracks in the paint.
Sometimes there's cracks through the paint, but it comes from above, or it can come from behind. So that's a window. So maybe there's a soffit up there from the roof, and it comes behind and it comes out. Where the paint is not all the way bonded to the wall, it's light or it's overly applied, and then you'll have that effect. And we live in South Florida. South Florida is a very aggressive temperature. You have extreme heat, and then it goes back down at nighttime. Not as cold, but then you have the salt. This is the key. There's over 50% saline air here than it is up north. So you have a lot of aggressive salt that comes in, and salt creates all the corrosion on your rebars and so forth. So it expands the structure. I don't know what's behind it, but I would obviously first remove the paint. You see what's behind it and you evaluate it. Typically, there may be some small rebar corrosion behind that if it's a masonry wall. Yeah.
So usually when I've seen this in the past, I've always just gotten my painter involved. And for the most part, that seems to have worked out. Is that a good way to go with this? Or if it's something like this, should we be bringing in something beyond a painter?
No, perfect. You did it right the first time. Get the painter involved. He takes it up really well, but you need to see what's behind it before he just goes and applies another layer of paint, because there may be an ongoing issue. And sometimes most painters are not qualified to do the concrete restoration behind it.
Yeah.
But if he addresses it, he sees it, and there is corrosion, then you could address it at that point. So I think it's a two-part approach to this. Remove the existing blister, get it off to the back, get it to the sheathing, and then you get to look at it. And the painter goes, oh, we can apply paint to this, great. If not, bring in a concrete restoration specialist to do it for you.
Got it. This is something else that we see sometimes on the outside of our buildings. It's like cracks that are running, and it looks like it's kind of a bulge around that crack. I don't know if you can see that in the image, but there's a crack in the stucco, and it's almost like a mountain range that's happening there.
Yes. Okay, another approach. Sometimes it's very small cracks. Usually it's measured between a 1/16 of an inch and a 1/4 inch. Then it becomes a structural crack.
So when we're saying a 1/16 inch, 1/4 inch, that's the distance between these 2 points on here. We're talking about the width of the crack.
Right, correct.
Not the length of the crack.
No, the width of the crack, correct. Okay. And so what happens is that that can become where once again the rebar behind that wall is now expanding because it's corroding and it's scaling, and it produces this crack. So you want to define, is it a stress crack, meaning just a typical regular small crack, or is it a structural crack? That's the key. If it's a stress crack, you can easily grind it. You can replace it with paint, caulking, and paint. If it's structural, you need to repair what's going on behind it, the damages behind it.
Okay. All right. Now, sometimes we see this. This actually is actually a foundation issue, or not a foundation, but this was on a floor.
A floor.
This
like
was
probably a catwalk. Like
yeah.
A catwalk. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was actually on a floor. So this picture, we're looking down,
Correct.
and this is how we found it. It was an association we took over, and we're looking down at the floor, and there's entire pieces of concrete missing. And then the rebar that's in there is what that brown stuff is, which was obviously very rusty.
Yeah, that's the rebar. That's reinforced. The rebar is short for reinforcing bar. That holds.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just learned that.
So concrete is very, very great in compression, meaning pressing downward. It's horrible in lateral movement. They call it tension, going cross. So they have to put this rebar inside of a concrete slab to be able to support you when you walk, to be able to support anything on top of it. So when you see this, it's gone beyond stage 2, stage 3. It's an emergency need of repair. You need to shore up the bottom so it doesn't fall through. You need to cut out all around that area, put new concrete with new rebar, because the integrity of the structure has been compromised, and you have to replace it. Usually it starts with a crack, and then it builds, and it gets to this point. But once again, the salt attacks that metal, and that's what happens. It scales and it corrodes.
So, for an area like this, should we be stopping people from walking on that catwalk as well, and
Absolutely.
keeping people from being underneath that catwalk?
Absolutely.
All of that?
Absolutely. Typically what happens, it just gets worse. As it rains, every time it rains, it expands a little bit more, it gets worse, and then underneath you'll start to see the ceiling underneath start to fall, and that becomes an issue. I would stop anyone from walking on that area absolutely. Then I would have an engineer assess it and give me a repair method, meaning how do I replace this concrete, what type of concrete to use, and how do I replace the reinforcing steel, what type of reinforcing steel to use, how thick it should be. So you have a certified engineer, because when you get permitting, they're gonna have to get the drawings from the engineer, sharp drawings from the engineer. It's required.
Okay, so like for something like this, if we see rebar, and I think this might have been a cantilever balcony now that I'm thinking about this. But
That's even worse.
Yeah. But so we should. Your company is something that can help with us, but we're going to need to get an engineer out. We're going to need to have specifications. We're going to need to have drawings.
Yes.
All of that put together for something like this.
Yes.
This goes beyond what we're seeing before.
Yes, because even if you get a contractor, when he goes to submit the permitting documents, the city, the county, whoever's the municipality will require an engineer signed, stamped, and sealed drawing. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be just one page. Hey, this is how I want you to fix this. So, but I would use an engineer for sure.
I'm going to go back to this image. So in this image, I guess the difference is that we can't see what's happening behind it.
Correct.
So if we were to open this up and behind it we were to see rusted rebar, do we need to get an engineer involved?
Absolutely.
Okay, so basically as soon as you see rebar and it's rusted, we need to have an engineer involved.
Correct. And then you use those documents that the engineer gives you, and you could repair other areas that comes up. You don't have to call the engineer every time. Once that you see the type of repair, this is what the engineer recommended, and this is how we're going to repair it.
For that building.
For that building.
So when we move buildings, we can't take one spec an engineer did for a building and put it. Okay.
No. So
now this was something. I think this was following a hurricane, actually.
Yeah, it looks like.
So I believe this was a combination of different damages that were happening, but one of them very likely was impact from storm surge and sea and everything that was going on.
Correct.
So something like this, I'm assuming.
Oh, that's I mean, it's horrible the way it looks, but it's the same thing, same principles apply as you would do with the balcony. You would shore post, you would protect, you would, shore up, meaning hold up the areas around this, remove that area, and then re-pour it and reconnect it back to the structure. Yeah, that's you could tell that's from Hurricane because it's so clean. There's no scaling, and the rebars are really, really nice and clean. But that's a structural failure. You see how wide those cracks are going up? It's just the cracks below it. It's structural failure. It's beyond a 1/16 of an inch, and that becomes structural. That's just that the weight above is not able. This column is not able to hold the weight above, so it crumbles.
So this is a building that Newell currently manages, and
Okay.
we're trying to figure out where to move forward with this.
Okay.
So this is an older building.
Okay.
I think it was built in the 80s, early 80s.
Yeah, that's typical.
Um,
A lot of development around that time.
and what we're seeing is on these balconies,
Mm-hmm.
there is an event that is occurring where we're particularly around the around these
The railings, the post pockets.
the post pockets.
Yeah.
But we're also seeing just places where the actual concrete is, or whatever this material is. We're seeing very similar to this type of thing that's happening. That's on the ground and the concrete. So the concrete is pushing up, or the stucco is pushing up, and that's another thing. Before we get too far into this, oftentimes we talk about stucco and we talk about concrete. What's the difference?
Big difference. Stucco is an exterior skin. It literally just gives you a texture.
How thick is stucco?
Stucco cannot be more than 5/8 inch thick.
Okay.
Right? If I'm doing it on the ceiling, it has to be 3/8 inches or less. Okay. If I'm doing it vertically on a wall, it has to be no more than 5/8 of an inch.
All right.
And that's code. That's required by ASTM, and also the Florida Building Code requires that as well. So most folks apply an inch or 2 inch, and they fill a gap with stucco. That's not the case. You need to do it with concrete first, and then the skin of it, just the texture of it, goes in for stucco. So that's how it's. Most folks expect stucco to be, prevent water leaks and so forth. No, not at all. Concrete itself is very strong, and it has over 3,000 psi. The strength of it, like I said earlier, it's big in compression and weak in tension. But stucco don't have that. I think stucco is maybe 1,000 psi. It's very brittle. You could literally break stucco with your hand.
Got it. So this is a location where the first thing that happened, and there was a sequence of events which has occurred at this building, but the very first sequence was they decided they wanted to change the color of the building and repaint.
Correct.
So from a manager's side, that means that we're going to get a spec and we're going to bid it out. So
Right.
it was bid out with a color change. These balconies that you can see right here are not accessible except from within the units.
Okay.
So at the time, there was no inspection of all of the balcony floors. I think the 5th floor balcony was the only one that we looked at when they were doing the spec.
Okay.
Painters all bid it. A painter was selected. The painter comes in, paints the building.
Okay.
And when they do the paint, they come back and now they've had access to these floors. And they're like, listen, there's a lot of work here. It's outside the scope of what we were bidding.
Correct.
So we can do this, but it's going to be a time and materials job.
Correct.
The board didn't like the idea of time and materials because they feel that it's kind of an open checkbook.
It is.
So they go back to the vendor and they're like, listen, this should have been part of what you did. And he said, well, no, what I was doing was just, repairs to stucco, non-structural repairs. What we're looking at doing now is going beyond that.
Correct.
They pushed for a couple of other bids from a couple of different vendors. We couldn't find any vendor that would do a bid outside of time and materials. And I think the more we pushed, the more uncomfortable these different painting groups became. Because they felt that the scope, at this point, if you want us to bid this, we needed an engineer to create a specification, and we're going to then bid on that specification.
Correct.
Now, this is kind of an example of what we're seeing. And I don't know if this is, because I don't know, is this stucco? Is this not stucco?
Yeah. That's stucco going into the concrete. So the first layer is stucco, you rip that off, but then you find out that the rebar is expanding and it's creating that huge crack. You see that?
Yeah.
That's probably 1.5 inches at one end.
Yeah, it's about 1.5 inches wide at the far end, and then obviously it gets smaller. These are two different pictures. This picture was just clear so you could see the measuring tape.
But you remember what I said to you, anything beyond the 1/16 of an inch becomes a structural crack.
Okay.
So that's all structural.
So at this point, when we did need to get an engineer involved. So an engineer did get involved, an engineer did develop the specification.
Okay.
That's kind of where we're at right now, is we have an engineer specification with an engineer ready to go ahead and do a pre-bid with a group of people.
With qualified contractors that can do this repair.
Yes. And that's where we're at right now. So we basically have paid the engineer to put together the spec and do the pre-bid. We haven't done the pre-bid yet. But it's kind of like it's a snowball situation.
I know.
So this association is now kind of looking at us, and they're trying to, how is this structural? This is paint, and we're kind of going back and forth.
That's the confusion of most folks. They see it, and it's small, and you just keep repainting over the areas. What happens here is that your aluminum railing post must be embedded into the slab that you're walking on. Once you put the metal into that area, it corrodes. When it corrodes to the rebar. The rebar then expands, and that's what you're seeing here. So that's a two-part approach. You have to fix for the new railing, you have to make sure embedded properly. It cannot touch the rebar, but the existing rebar that's in there needs to be repaired, re-poured, sometimes of it completely replaced. Then you could put the post in, then you could paint. See, the thing is you have to get to the meat of the problem, and painting and putting a coat of paint over it, it's not going to solve the problem. Your painters are not going to want to attack this problem because in 6 months, you're going to call them again. Why? Crack's going to reappear. It's going to open up, and it's going to cause a problem. So this is not going to go away unless it's repaired properly.
Yeah, I think also this is kind of an interesting one because, and I don't understand why it is. There's also this odd gap that exists between the decks and
the slab.
Each floor.
Yeah, it's called an expansion joint.
Uh-huh.
So it allows the movement of the slab, the concrete slab, to move. It expands and contracts with the weather. Okay? So if you don't have a gap there, it'll crack every time. So they put some sort of a very, very foamy, very rigid material that can flex in between each slab. So you see the...
Oh, you're saying at the bottom?
Yeah, you see how that line runs all the way vertically, all the way up, all the way down? Mm-hmm. That's because the two structures are not combined. They are separate, and that becomes a filler. It's like a filler gap, but it allows movement because the building needs to move. Okay?
Yeah, I think on this one, the other thing that kind of got everybody a little concerned is, or at least we've started seeing more concern, is since the Surfside collapse.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of companies, when we start to get into something and they see stuff like this, they become concerned.
Of course.
And I think that to say exactly what I was told by it wasn't this site, but it was another site, and there was which I think a very good painting contracting company, and he did not. His words were, "I don't want my fingerprints on this unless I've got an engineer who's telling me what to do."
Correct.
Because he was worried about
liability.
Yes, him having liability or saying, giving bad advice. You work on the East Coast as well, correct?
Yeah, a lot of projects on the East Coast, yes.
So has Surfside and all of that impacted what's going on over there? Or?
Tremendously.
Really? Because you guys already had that law, right? You had, I could be mistaken, but the inspection law the associations have now is based off of the code from Brevard County, right?
Correct. What happened first was I think there's a 10-year certification inspection. No, I'm sorry, a 30-year certification inspection.
Right,
After 30 years, you have to inspect it every 5 years, I think. And it has to be a structural inspection from an engineering firm and an electrical inspection from a qualified electrical engineer. And typically, sometimes it's combined. But after that, they suggest repairs. But overall, when they suggest the repairs, they would just go into reserves, and then the association would say, well, we'll get to it when we can get to it. Which typically the repairs exceed what they have available to repair. So they kept pushing it aside. with the
So the
Surfside,
30-year law didn't require repairs; it just required the inspection.
Yes, the inspections, but it was very, very loose when it comes to, okay, this must be done before we give you a certification.
Okay.
The engineers sometimes would say, hey, it's not as bad, we're going to sign off on it, but you need to get it repaired.
Okay.
And then in those gap years, within the next 2, 3, 4 years, they don't do it, then there's an issue. Surfside, the law says every year now you're going to have this structural repair. And if the engineer says that it needs to be repaired, it needs to be repaired within 6 months to a year. You can't wait. And you have to have the reserve build up in your association to be able to fund those repairs. Because they no longer want to hear their excuse of you don't have the money in reserve, you don't have the money or you don't have it in reserves. And if you don't have it in reserves, they want you to assess the residents. Otherwise, they want you to close the building down.
Got it.
That's the issue. It's no longer let's wait till it happens. We must repair these things right now. And it's a lot of it. So you have that going on. And it's because of this. Older buildings push off the repairs, and most of the board members are obviously not structural engineers or not contractors, and they go, that's a lot of money. Let's wait till next year. Let's wait till we get some more money. And it just keeps going on. But this is a life safety concern. It's not just, these. So the state is demanding and requiring, and now it's law. You must do it.
Yeah, it's definitely. Surfside's collapse impacted all of us because of the new state laws, but I thought that it would actually have impacted the East Coast less because you already had inspections that were happening. It was all new to us.
Miami-Dade and Broward were more of the pioneers for it, yes, because they had more buildings down there that needed it. Of course, now it became statewide. It would happen in Tampa. It would happen in Orlando. It would happen in Jacksonville. Same issues. It wasn't as prevalent because of the amount of volume of buildings. Most of the volume of condominiums and hotels and so forth are down south. So now that became an issue because it happened in the epicenter where most of these structures were. But it's applied across the state now. So now my firm, we have to go to Tampa, we have to go to Naples, we have to go to the East Coast because the engineering firms that are assessing these buildings are very, very few, and they are in most of those locations. So they would want your help. So that's why we have to expand. And one engineer told me that, Chris, I have 5 years of work nonstop if I take no other job, just because so many repairs need to happen. Yeah. So this is something that the board needs to really look into and prepare for, financially and also structurally.
Well, I really have appreciated your counsel and your guidance over the years. You've been fantastic at helping me out, particularly if I don't know where to go with something. I'm like, who can help me with this?
Good.
Why don't we take a moment? I'd like you to tell Noopers a little bit of your background and your history, your education, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
To kind of explain this a bit more, because it can seem like we have people that are jack of all trades, but he's quite specialized, but he's able to move out. So why don't you tell us a little bit?
All right. In a summary, I'm a little bit of a unicorn. Okay, I got educated at FAU in ocean engineering. I did civil engineering on the water, basically, bridges, docks, seawalls, and so forth. I did it for many years. And over the years, we got these type of projects. We were the engineering firm that would go in and do these projects. And we would assess it. We would try to find contractors. Was able to find great contractors. Okay. So then I ventured out and I said, okay, let's start doing this ourselves. And we did that. We did it for a few years on the East Coast. And what happened was that when Hurricane Ian happened, there was a position that opened up here for a general contractor. And I jumped in. I said, hey, honey, kids are at the house. Let's get over to the East. Let's get over to the West Coast. Anyway, so I did so many years of that, forensic engineering assessments. And then I did a lot of the contract repairs. So I'm able to do both. And I understand how engineers speak, what they're looking for, and what the board's looking for. But also the contracting side of having the skilled labor to do it. This is a skilled position. This is not something that you can just pick up and take on. These guys, we have guys that have been doing it for 20 years. So, but yeah, I'm able to do that. So during the hurricane issues, we did 126 interior remodel repairs from the hurricane, which made me venture into the cabinets and the flooring and the drywall and the paint and redecorating showers and redesigning, interior repairs and so forth. So Now my firm is able to handle interior, but we are specialists in the exterior repairs. But if, the client's comfortable with us, they'll keep us. Chris, can you do that when you guys are done? Of course, we'll take care of it for you as well.
Fantastic. Well, Newpers, we'll make sure to send over all of Chris's contact information.
Yes. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Let me say this about him. I've dealt with a lot of property managers, and Adoni's been one of the best, paperwork-wise, communicative-wise, instructions, and like you said, when you don't know, you say, Chris, I don't know, how do we address this issue? Every project and every job we go into, there are issues that are unknowns. I call them the blind spots. We have them, but your approach to it, it's been very attractive to me as a person wanting to improve our business. And I came to you and I said, hey, how do we do this more? Because I do want to build those relationships, and we're able to, and I appreciate you having me here and giving me the opportunity.
Well, thank you for coming, and Newpers, you guys all have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.